Good evening, everyone. I'm Manodya Nabadawewa, your host for the webinar. And we all know that for Sri Lankans, this is a good evening, but there are some participants around the world from Russia, India, and Pakistan, and for so many countries. For people who are enjoying their afternoon, so good afternoon. And if there's anyone who is enjoying the first half of the day, the morning session, very good morning to all of you. All together, have a nice day. So the webinar that we are going to discuss today, the topic that we are going to discuss today is how to write a research paper. How to write a research paper, this has been a problem for many undergraduates across the globe. Not only the undergraduates, the second year, third year students, but also for the final year undergraduates, as well as sometimes the postgraduate students also do have some problems when it comes to writing a research paper. So that is why the IEEE student branch of Sri Lanka Technological Campus decided to organize a webinar on the topic of how to write a research paper, especially with the collaboration of the Sri Lanka Technological Campus School of Postgraduate and Research. So we have one of best experts in the field to deliver the webinar, our very own Professor Dushant Jayakodi as the resource person for the session. So I would like to welcome him to the webinar as well. So I hope that you guys went through his profile, which was advertised on our Facebook pages and the emails that we have sent to you. And to start the proceedings, to move on with the proceedings, it's my privilege to invite the person who has helped us a lot when it comes to organizing this kind of a webinar, Mr. Leslie Uduavidane. So Leslie, sir, I would like to invite you to deliver a very little speech on this webinar to the audience. Sir, it's over to you.
Thank you, Manodya. Everyone, whoever, where you're joining, I wish a fantastic good day, maybe in the evening, early in the morning, wherever you are in a very, very auspicious day. One of the key blessings we got from COVID is learning. Either we do a lot of learning. I mean, according to McKinsey, latest research, it is only 2 days old. Even with 78% of the CEOs learning these days heavily. And therefore, I think all of you, maybe my beloved learned faculty members, colleague of ours, and my dear darling students from all over the world, having this privilege, sharing knowledge, learning new things in this somewhat gloomy time of human history. But the positivity is we are all geared to learn. Most importantly, in Sri Lankan context, we are proud to say we are hosting one of the best international conference with IEEE. If I tell you correctly, 10th IEEE International Conference on Information and Automation for Sustainability. And this is the happening thing in Sri Lanka during this particular difficult time. Therefore, we thought of, rather than looking at a negativity or negative side of the thing, I mean, light a single candle which enlighten us for the seeking knowledge. Therefore, I'm not going to take a lot of time because the fantastic human being, fantastic teacher, fantastic colleague who's waiting for to deliver his fantastic topic called How to Be a Scientific Writer. The premise is all about this entire session going to make changes in your thinking pattern, the mindset. In Sri Lankan context, any other world context, it is very important to have researchers. Researchers changing the world from Socrates to Aristotle to Feynman to Stephen Hawking to whoever. Change the world. I mean, unbelievably leaps and bounds. Therefore, you are in this rare breed of people, researchers. Therefore, my humble request, don't take this as a mere webinar. You have to acquire the skill, apply the skill, and sustainably continue to use your research knowledge, make this world beautiful. Therefore, this beautiful evening or morning, whatever time you are in, I would cordially invite all of you. I'm so happy to organize this particular session with School of Postgraduate Studies and Research in Sri Lanka Technology Campus. The main premise is that invite all of you, please come and take a seat, present your paper during the 10th IEEE International Conference on Information and Automation for Sustainability, which is going to scheduled in 2021 next year, month of May, starting from 3rd to 5th in Sri Lanka, beautiful coastal city in Negombo. I hope vaccine has started in EU and China, and they are going with full-blown vaccination from this December. I hope we can see each other physically. Therefore, with all those good omens and blessings, I would like to invite my dear Professor Dushanta Jayakodi to start up this very auspicious webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Leslie. And thank you, IEEE student branch of Sri Lanka Technological Campus for inviting me for this talk, and also the organizing of this event, Infocom Lab at Tomsk Polytechnic University in Russia. So as Mr. Leslie and Manodya Nabadawewa mentioned, so this talk is about how to be a scientific writer. So in this talk, I'll try to share, my limited experience with you, and I'll try to bring you through the process that involved in writing a research paper. So I call it How to Be a Scientific Writer, the Art of Writing. So this talk is actually not about how to do research and research methodology, but how you will formalize or format your scientific article. Right. So during this talk, you will learn about first how to read the paper. First, we need to learn how to read the paper, and then you need to follow research methodology and come up with your results, and then you can put them together to form a basic paper. So the talk will entails, various steps that helps you in formalizing your research papers. Right. So first of all, let's look at the area of how you are reading a research paper. So in fact, there is no proper single way to read a research paper. So if you are an undergraduate student or a postgraduate first year student, so there are a lot of information that you need to gather. And also you need to focus especially on the introduction part and the conclusion part. So there are a lot of papers around the internet, right? So you can download them. And also it is good practice that you look for verified sources. What is meant by verified sources? For example, like IEEE Explorer and Science Direct database. So if you can download papers that are peer-reviewed papers from these places, and you have a trustable references. So in order to read and understand them, first you need to actually browse them through, like skim them, and try to grasp what this paper is trying to talk about, and focus on the introduction and the conclusion. If you are coming from an engineering background, or like myself, electronics and communication background, so a lot of papers come with very hard format, right? So this may not be appealing to you in the first time, and that can lead to a death rejection, right? So you may not be enjoying to read these lot of hard format. But don't mind, just go through it and try to understand the intro part, because introduction makes sure that the readership understand what author is trying to express, right? So you don't have to discourage by seeing the very complicated mathematical formulas or very complicated algorithms, but you can read them, you can read the discussion part, and also you can read the introduction part and the results. So results are easy to understand, no? What kind of results or figures because I mean it is found in many scientific studies that people more more focused or more comfortable with reading graphs than reading text. So when an author presents a scientific paper, they make sure the figures are self-readable, right? You can also read the such results and understand what these authors trying to say, right? So here I have just presented some algorithm that I am advising to my research students. So number one is you skim through it, and then you have to don't bother about reading the entire paper. Entire paper can consist of maybe 20 pages, 30 pages document. So even if you read it, you might not understand it full. So you can read the selected parts of the paper and try to grab what it's trying to say. And then it is important to annotate, right? So I ask all my research students to prepare a one-page document or summary what each paper trying to say. So they need to collect it, right? So they need to collect all these research papers, and whenever they are revisiting them, so they don't have to, or you don't have to read the entire paper, but this one-page summary says what this paper trying to say, what are the merits of this, and what are the demerits of this, what is the methodology that this paper adhere to. Or you can also say what you could improve, right? It doesn't need to be like realistic plan, but you need to dream about future technologies, right? So if you are coming from engineering background, you always need to argue on the current setting of the paper and where you can actually target to break. So there are certain settings are made by the scientific papers and certain claims that you see. But you can also feel when you are reading, though you don't understand the algorithm and all that hardcore math or meat of that paper, but you can get what it tried to say, and you can ask yourself, is this making a sense, right? Your humble and your genuine thoughts, you can put them down into your notes. So when you are doing this scientific process, or if you want to do research, it is very important that you put your mind and soul into it, and also taking notes when you are reading papers. Proper documentation is very important. You need to be organized, and you need to also be very disciplined about your activities, right? So every activity needs to be recorded, even if they are wrong results, or you think, there is no wrong or right, but maybe correct or incorrect, right? With respect to the current existing knowledge. So I recommend that you, all students, when you are interested in book chapter or interesting scientific paper, you make your own notes, right? Because your own notes tells you what this paper is about. So it will be, just a fraction of few minutes, and you get to know what is it about. And another piece of advice that I give to my student is, and once you embark your career as a student researcher or researcher, so you will understand certain authors. Write in a way that they are more, appealing to you, right? So you need to, at the beginning of your research career, you need to find out those authors who writes quite well in your own opinion, right? It is not about your advisor's opinion at large or about your colleague's opinion. Sometimes there are some authors who are verified authors who publish in international databases. You can find them and you can follow them. There are a lot of research platforms now. All of you can register in ResearchGate and Google Scholar. There are a lot of platforms as such, and you can follow them, and also you can make alerts, right? When these guys are publishing new papers, you can read it because you get an alert. And I am still doing it. I'm still following certain authors that I like, the way they write. And I know some people follow me as well, right? So it's about, it's because we all all of us treat as colleagues, right? and there is no hierarchy in research and innovation. So you can follow these tips, and I hope that will be really, helpful. And I have tested these tips, and that really worked within my student cohort. Right, so let's look into how you are cooking up a paper. So what are the basic ingredients of a scientific article? And probably, all of you might seen there are a lot of scientific articles around the internet. And, in the past, they were only printed and not available online. But thanks to the internet and, wireless communication and all other technologies, now everything is at your, arm's length. So you can just browse the internet and download the topic of your interest and, read and understand what is the, state of the art of a particular technology area. Right. So there are few, few steps or few things that we need to focus when we are formulating a research question. Before we write a paper, we need to have a research question. How are you going to formalize your research question? So first one is focused. So you need to focus. You need to have a focus and researchable question. And there are questions that cannot be researchable at your own level. Maybe you are not having enough equipment to research those, or maybe you don't have an adequate background. So you need to find a question that will enable you to go deep with your current set of skills, or else you need to learn more skills and address the same question at a different level. So when you are focusing on a single topic and a problem, your central research question should follow from your research problem to keep your work more focused, right? So you may come up with a multiple question, and they should all clearly related to each other. This relation is very important because otherwise you will be everywhere, right? You don't have to be everywhere, and you can be very focused and to the point as well. And also this set of questions need to be answerable using your primary or secondary data set. And you can do a quantitative analysis, or you can do a qualitative analysis for your data, right? So, and you should also read a lot of scholarly sources on the topic that you are interested in, and then you can actually land into a topic that is quite, interesting to you. So when you are also looking into a research question, it shouldn't be, you should not ask for a subjective value judgment as well. So you need to also avoid subjective words like good, bad, or better or worse, as these things does not give much sense of feeling to the scientific community, right? So in your question, when you are forming your research question, so it is better not to ask a comparative questions like is X or Y a better policy, right? And how effective are the X and Y policies? So these things, you can of course address, but you need to have a, more focused research questions to be formed at the first place, right? So that is focused and the researchability, right? And the third one is the feasibility. So when you are trying to answer, because your research will answer to the question that you formalize, and that need to be feasible during the time frame. And because that is something that we especially look at when we are evaluating final year project proposals, MSc project proposals, MPhil proposals, and PhD proposals. So these all proposals need to be in line with in the time frame and also level. So we are not expecting, for instance, very theoretical contribution from undergraduate students, but it does not mean that you cannot do. All of you can do if you put soul and energy into it. But the expectations are varies, depend on the level that you are standing at the moment. And So other thing is, when you are forming a question, try not to form a question which is very trivial and will answer from like a yes and no questions, right? So these questions are very trivial and doesn't require enough research. And also, for instance, some actually binary answers question may lead to a significant research if they have some national significance or timely significance, right? And also you have to have a complex enough question to research on, and this also should relate to your area, because area is also very important, and relevance and the originality. So maybe this question is being researched for over the years and years, right? And if you are trying to do the same thing without any novelty, then I can assure you that your time will be wasted. Nobody going to accept your work unless you are coming up with a new set of solutions that has a different set of merits. So you need to have that in your mind when you are like piggyback with the all sort of very traditional and also well-researched topics. So because what you mean by well-researched topics is there are a lot of peer-reviewed articles are available, and there are a lot of research achievements done in that particular area. The main sort of deficits are solved. So there are much room. There should be enough room for every sort of topic, but the relevance or the timeliness is the question. So therefore, you need to come up with a topic that is relevant to the time that you are living at the moment, and also originality. So originality need to be very high degree. And so one more thing is, like in a bigger research project, like a thesis or dissertation, you might have multiple research questions that are related. But when it comes to a particular research article, it is better to have one or two, like couple of questions that are related to each other, right? So because your manuscript is blueprint of your experiments or your theoretical study, right? And because second thing is, when a reviewer review your research article, they need to feel that your work is very focused and attacking a fundamental problem in the area, right? And if he sees that you have nicely formatted and very well English, but the novelty is questionable, and you are trying to combine couple of known technologies together and try to put out something, that has a marginal benefit to the community, and then such papers will not be accepted by a reputed journal. So this is something also you need to think when you are formulating your research question. Why I am re-emphasizing this? Because you are going to invest your time, maybe 1 year, or 6 months or 2 years in this problem to research. And then if you at the end, if you realize this is not something publishable and has well researched and answered in full, so then you are not gaining the entire merit that you should receive. But anyway, regardless of the ability to publish it or not, you will be gaining training. That training part also very important, because doing research is a supervised training at the beginning for young researchers. So you need to be trained. If you can find a supervisor, you can be trained with a supervisor who is an expert of your area. That will be very good. So you will have a supervised training in your early days. Right, so when you are developing research questions, so there are a few categories actually. So there are descriptive research. So in descriptive research, people look at the characteristics of certain element, or what are the characteristics of X. And comparative research looks at finding differences, advantages, disadvantages of the technique or a method or a particular product. And also there are correlational research. In the correlational research, there are relationships between the variables, like for example, variable X and variable Y. And also there are exploratory research. And in such work, people are looking at, for instance, what are the main factors of X? What is the role of Y in Z? Right? So what are the, for example, if because I'm working on wireless communication as a scientist. So, I can give you examples on explanatory research. For instance, like if you are looking at, wireless communication system. So what are the impact of your system in relation to energy efficiency? And if I am coming up with a new system, what are the merits of my new scheme in relation to quality of service, right? And how the energy, profile works in this entire system. Maybe you are developing a super duper good technology, right? But if that's eat up entire battery or entire energy, then the effective utilization is negligible. And then you can't also publish such work, but probably some poor quality journals might accept your work. But but however, there is no enough contribution there. So you also need to look at when you are doing research and also publishing them, what is the impact to the society and impact to the community, right? And there are also evaluation research. So that looks at actually, it is also, certain things are, have overlaps as well. And it looking at the effectiveness of certain criteria, and that evaluates a technology, and in a different perspective. So somebody can say, okay, I am evaluating 4G technology from a perspective of a rural user point of view, right? So they are kind of evaluation research. And there are also action research. So action research is, and we are given a certain hypothesis, and all these research actually need to come up with hypothesis. So in action research, generally you are given a key performance indicator and how you are going to achieve that. And also if you are given different strategies, and you need to look at what is the most effective strategy for a given constraints, right? So they are the sort of the research questions that we can formalize. So so in my talk, you will see over and over again, format of the research papers, and also certain keywords will be repeating. That is actually deliberately did this just to emphasize the significance of this, because there are a lot of people don't put much attention to certain details. When you are a scientist, a student scientist, or when you want to publish a paper, attending to detail is extremely important, right? So first, let's look at the basic structure. So every paper comes with a title page that tells what is the experimental use. So I have a separate slide on this, and I'll explain more. And then there is abstract. Abstract summarizes the entire contribution and the methodology and the conclusion of your paper. So generally abstracts can be 250 words, and certain journals may allow go to up to 500 words as well. So there are also indexing words or keywords. So the keywords are the signpost, like for example, if I am writing a paper, so I generally am working on 5G wireless communication and general communication theory, right? So I can write my keywords. That helps other researchers to find my paper. And because when I am publishing them, these buzzwords need to go, right? Then the search engines can also land you to the correct format, papers that you are looking for. And the other one is introduction. So introduction explains the background, and it gives a motivation of this work, and also what are the hypotheses that are proposed by the author. So these things will be explained at the introduction. And then we go to very important paper. I call it the meat of the paper actually. That is the method and materials, right? And how did you perform your experiment? And how did you come up with the analytical results? So these things need to be well discussed at the methodology part. right? So then you have selling point. The selling part is the results. This is the area that you sell your paper. I mean, selling in the sense that you make it a wide attention of your community, right? So you need to have very concise presentation of your data. It should be, easy to access by your fellow scientists. And it should be, it should talk for themselves, right? So for instance, the results can present in a graph or tables or algorithms, it depends on the area. And then each results you need to discuss. You need to relate your results to your initial hypothesis, and then you need to verify them, right? So when you look at the paper, so every section is connected to each other and support each other as well. And we call it actually scientific progression is maintained. If you look at a good paper, and then you can say, oh, this paper maintains a very nice scientific progression because it follows one another and also it engages with the discussion. So when you are engaging with the discussion, and the reader can easily understand what this author is trying to communicate, because dissemination is one of the main thing in science and technology, because when we are doing research, our dissemination also need to be very paid very well attention. Right? Okay. So the last part is the conclusion. In the conclusion section, what we do is we kind of summarize what is presented at the entire paper, and this is not duplication of the abstract. So sometimes authors try to rewrite the abstract in a different way, but conclusion is something that you are concluding based on the presented results. And I have seen when I serve as editor and a reviewer for various international journals, and I have seen a lot of conclusions where they rephrase the abstract. But in conclusion, what we are expecting is to conclude your results. What these results mean in 5 lines, right? What this matter to us. And you don't have to go over and over again into the discussion that you did in the past. One of the golden things that I want you to remember when you are writing a scientific paper, if you want to tell something, you tell at once, right? You don't repeat it again. Because sometimes, when we have a discussion or when we are writing an essay, people try to, re-emphasize on the same thing that you did before. It is to emphasize the importance. But when it comes to the scientific papers, you don't have to do that, right? Because they will talk for, itself. Every line that you write in a scientific paper should have a meaning, and they should not be repeated, right? And the next section is the references. So in the references section, you provide up-to-date references that are related to the introduction part, and how this area has been evolved, right, up to date. And you need to give if you are working on, for example, wireless communication, like I'm using always the references from there because that's the only area I know. And for instance, if you are using Shannon's capacity theorem, you don't need to give references because it's known by everyone. If there is any famous theory that you are using in your scientific work, you don't need to give references. But rest of the thing that you should give reference. When you are giving reference, it's good to have a diversity as well, and also some timely development of your area. Better to present. So at least there should be references. That are published about last couple of years should be there. More recent references need to be there. Actually, that tells something to the readers. Why I'm emphasizing this? When you are using timely references, that tells that the area is hot at the moment, right? So that kind of approaches and tips that you can follow. For instance, when you are referencing something, you can also actually, look into the journal that you are planning to submit, and also look at whether they publish similar work. If you can also find similar references of the journal that you are planning to publish, that helps the editorial team, right? Because that gives an indication this is some kind of work that this journal has published in the past. So it is worth considering your manuscript as well. And then finally, there is an appendix section. Generally what we put here is something that that is not required to read the paper substantially. For instance, proof of theorem, if you are presenting a new theory, or if you are presenting a new equipment or new system, sometimes the background, the information about your scheme is not required unless somebody want to rebuild it, right? So those details can go to the appendix. Because if you put them in the main body of the paper, the readership can be disturbed by unnecessary information presenting in the middle. So we need to actually careful about the reader. And what I always say and what I do, I always imagine myself as the reader. And before I submit a paper, and I look at the reader's perspective, right? And then I make certain, judgments and comments or feedback to my students and to myself, right? How to improve the readability of the paper. Right. So here actually, this explains the, what are the main ingredients of paper that I discuss: introduction, methods, results, discussion, and the conclusion. Right. So there are a few basics that I would like you to remember when you are in the process of writing your paper. So I know most of you are very excited to write, research paper and have your name appeared in indexing journals, right? So these are very plus points and rewards for your student career. And also as a researcher, we also like to, have, our findings are accepted by well-renowned journals. So when you are trying to publish a paper, you also need to understand one thing. It doesn't matter how good your research is. If you are not communicating well, it properly or appropriately, people will not understand. And then it will lead to rejection of your paper. So people will not, editorial board will not accept your paper. So therefore, it is very, very important that you improve your communication skills. And also you improve the way you present things, right? So it's important that you tell about your finding to your colleague. This way you practice the way that it should be written in a paper as well. And also when you are writing a paper, you should understand where you are planning to submit. If you are planning a scientific paper that will read by your fellow researchers, right? And in this way, you can actually use a lot of keywords and you can go very hardcore technologies. You can use hardcore math in your work, and then only your community will appreciate your work, right? Of course, there should be a novelty and results should be applicable for practice. In addition, there are also survey papers. In survey papers, what we're trying to do is we try to educate the researchers about the state of the art of a particular technology. How a particular technology or a scheme or system has been evolved over the past years. And what are the current strengths of this technology? And what could be the future, right? So you need to discuss all of them in a survey paper. And also you can discuss what are the related projects, right? Working on this particular field of interest. So this way, you can also relate to, actual work that are being done around the globe. And in addition, a survey paper should give direction about the future of this particular area. And you need to tell that the readership, how many years there will be interest of this particular, area of your survey paper. So to come into this work or to this conclusion, you need to survey about 200 articles. So it is not so easy, but if you are a team of authors, you can actually work on a survey paper. And if you are planning to do a research that requires intensive literature review, and as a bonus, you can work on a research paper, a survey paper as well, because that helps another researcher who is trying to step into your area, to get directly onto your survey paper and get all the references at one go. So he doesn't need to spend hours and hours on the internet and looking for references. And your paper is a single point of contact that gives the researcher about the history, current state of the art, and the future development. Right. So in addition to what I mentioned, there are a few things that you need to, remember, right? So number one is the consistency of your paper. For example, what I mean by consistency is, and let's say you are trying to come up with a communication system that transmit base station, a signal from base station to a user, a mobile user. And in your work, you say I denote base station as BS, and the destination or the user as U. So once you said this, once you define these two things, now you can't go and say about the now you can't use the word base station. You should always use BS, right? And then you can actually also have a consistency in your mathematical formulation as well, right? So you can't just actually, what I'm trying to do, play here and there. Once you define something, you need to stick to it. So the consistency is need to maintain in entire paper. And the next one is the scientific progression. So in scientific progression, so each sentence of your paper need to follow each other, and also each subsection need to support each other and follow each other. So once somebody reading your paper, you can't just say something. You can add a subsection that is not related to this paper at all. That will kill the motivation of the paper. Though your subsection can be very interesting finding, but this is not covered in that scope of the paper. Then we say that scientific progression is not maintained, right? So you need to be very careful about your flow. Your flow need to have a scientific progression, and every line, every paragraph, every main section need to follow each other and try to prove the hypothesis that you made, right? And then presentation. This is something that I would like to emphasize, especially with non-English speaking authors, and also a lot of Asian authors, as myself as well. So generally there is a presentation issue, and how you present your paper, and secondly, precise language. So these two things generally are kind of inherited issues that we need to really address. So number one, compact presentation. That meaning that when you are presenting your paper, it needs to be, very well presented. For example, your figures need to, have a right color resolution, and the font of your figures need to be exactly same as the font of the paper, rest of the text. And in one paragraph, you cannot have a different, font sizes, and also there shouldn't be white spaces in between, right? And then, for example, let's say that you are presenting a paper about art development, right? So you have your figure 1 that tells about the big picture, and then suddenly you tell about the same thing at the results section. You draw new one, right? And but what you could have told that at the beginning, but you just to re-emphasize, you again drew a new figure that is kind of a more explanatory figure, and that doesn't actually tell readership anything new information, right? And also your language. So these things need to be very, focused and, attain. So language also need to be precise. So I think there are some slides that explain how your language should be maintained, and I will talk at that slide. Another thing is the format. So you need to use very good software. So I recommend that people use, LaTeX, and also Overleaf, that is online version of LaTeX. And also there are, if you are good at your formatting, you can use Word as well. Formatting is not only the software. Formatting is every equation that you present need to be punctuated, right? So all the full stop, colon, semicolon, all need to be there. And also you need to develop skills of, skills of handling the language in a professional way. So these all are, part of this thing. And your figures need to be extremely clear, right? So I would recommend that not to use very, any flashing colors that will harm the, people when they are reading, too flashy colors, and also not too dark colors, because when you are presenting your results, you want to distinguish certain things, right? And then if you are using similar kind of colors, is difficult to distinguish. And also sometimes I have seen people, they are using bold figures, and the text in the figures suddenly becoming bold, and some of the figures are too emotional as well, right? Because you are trying to make your paper cool, and then you introduce errors to the figure. Now you don't have to present very cool figures. What you have to present is very descriptive figures, right? And also that tells the detail. The figure detail should be there. What you are trying to do, because this is a scientific paper. This is not about a science communication or an essay or something. So then the figures need to tell what you are trying to, say. So that need to be crystal clear for the readership. And you don't have to actually have a lot of, entertainment item or something that is not very relevant to the work. So generally a scientific paper come with one figure that explains the system model, and then you present the results, right? Because otherwise the space can be captured by unnecessary material. And finally, you also need to think about conclusion. Conclusion, I would recommend to use very strong conclusion about your finding. So also, when you are concluding your work, try not to mislead the readership. Some people can say, we have presented a novel method that supersedes all the existing work. That is entirely wrong. It's difficult to make such big judgments. Therefore, try to use conclusion based on the results that you presented, right? And then you say your conclusion is very strong in wording, but you are being honest. I think number one quality, as all of us are human beings, when you are writing your research papers, you need to be honest about your experiment. You're honest about your claims, right? So it is very much recommended not to use claims that are not proved in your set of experiments. And also when you are writing paper, generally people write in a passive voice, right? And experiments are described generally in past tense, but you can also describe them in the present tense in certain times. And each journal has there are different styles that each journal follow, right? So you should check the publication guide or the conference guide, what kind of format that you need to adopt. It's not about the language, but certain journals say, okay, for instance, you can only have 6 figures and then 250 words for your abstract. So there are a lot of details that you need to follow. And also you need to have citation. So the references need to be emphasized, and all the dates of publication, etc. need to go there. And also you need the information presented in a paragraphs, and there shouldn't be any list, right? So you need to present the information in the paragraphs. And body of the paper and abstract is generally in the present tense, and conclusion is in the past tense. So if you remember these, and there is, you can write something reasonable. For example, we don't write words like "I did this experiment" and "my team conducted a set of experiment." So we don't write these things, right? So we always write in the passive way. Right. So let's try to put all of them together. Now we trying to write our paper, right? So now I go in details of each main element of the paper, and I try to emphasize on the thing that you can remember, and I hope they will be take home ideas as well. So number one is the title. So title. So when I am writing a paper or my students are writing, we try to come up with something little bit of fancy title. But title should not be misleading, right? So it should not say something that is not included. And also if you are having a very limited or a very short title, that can also cause problem because you are not covering the entire keywords in your title. So it's important to pick a title at the end of your draft that fits with what is presenting. And that should also give the narrative tone of the paper, right? So sometimes in your title, methods can be, methods that is using can be hinted as well. So there are, two examples that I have taken here, right? So two titles, one on the top, a title that I have seen online, right? And second one is used in my own paper. And you can see that in the second one that I use, I'm not trying to say what I did is the best, but there's no best way. Only way is some reasonable way that you need to have your title. So in my way, the paper that we say that what kind of methodology that we use. So we are using a self-energized drone assisted network for cooperative wireless relay scheme. So here the methodology is given and which kind of system also explained, and what kind of users are in the system also explained in this title. And also the title need to be consistent, right? So in the first one is about the performance analysis of energy efficient headnet with QoS. It should be constrained. So I think I have seen this, and you can see also the spelling mistake in the title as well. And second one is the title is not consistent. So suddenly energy become capital, E become upper class, while others are lower class, right? Simple words like analysis A and efficient E. So if you decided to do capital in one, and all need to be capital. So you need to have consistency in your title, and this should be descriptive enough as well. That relates to the technology that you are planning to discuss, and also have the methodology, some flavor of your methodology as well. Right. Number two is the method. Names of the authors. So as I emphasized in the beginning of this talk, in research and innovation, we all are colleagues. Even undergraduate student to a professor, we all consider as colleagues. Therefore, we don't use any academic titles such as doctor or professor in our papers, right? But in certain publication houses, allow or suggest or encourage to use their professional memberships only, right? So names of the authors go with your first name and the second name. And if you are planning for IEEE as your publication house, you can have your IEEE member status only. So I have actually seen when I'm reviewing papers, some papers come with these academic titles, some say Dean of XYZ. I mean, these things doesn't matter at all. You can't impress anybody, right? So by having these titles. So only thing is what you are impressing from your technology, not by your affiliations, not by your academic titles, only by your technology and your results. They are the ones that you are selling. And number 3 is the abstract. So what goes into the abstracts? So abstracts are short description or summary of the work that you are presenting. And also the summary, it tells about your methodology and tells about the state of the art, very couple of lines, and tells about your results, what you are proving, right? And generally, I recommend to write the abstract at the end. So then you know in and out of your work, because summarizing things is very difficult. So then you know in and out of your work, and you can present a summary of your work. And also, so in many research now, there's a trend in a lot of publication houses to publish graphical abstracts as well. So in a graphical abstracts, you can present a one figure that tells all about your paper. Because now, people don't have much time to read. So people, prefer graphical things to see, right? And also your papers can have a small video, that will be also uploaded to the repositories of these databases. And these things are also accessible for the readers as well. And by reading this graphical abstract or your general text abstract, gives a feeling or sense of understanding to the reader whether he should read this paper or not in the first place. This is something that he is looking for or not. And also it gives a sufficient information about the methodology that you followed, results you achieved, and conclusions that you are claiming. Right, the content of the abstract. So the content is your context for the investigation and your objectives and what was carried out and your results and then what was concluded. So here abstract that I wrote, given as an example, and you can see that, in this abstract is present in the present tense, and it tells you, what kind of technology I am using. Right? What are my keywords here? What are my technologies and what kind of model I am presenting? And then what I can claim at the end using the simulation results. Right? So, and make sure that you are not misleading by giving false hope to the reader. Right? Because if you try to do it, even at one point, number one, your paper will not be published by the editorial board. And even if you get through somehow the editorial board, you will earn a bad reputation in academia. Yeah, number 4 is indexing word. In a scholarly writing, there are something called signpost or connectiveness. So these connectors tells to the readership what kind of area that this paper is moving, right? So for example, what are the buzzwords that are used in this paper? And then they can actually decide whether to read it or not. In addition, the publication houses use these index terms to improve, Google search and kind of optimizing the search engines as well. And they are also important when they are categorizing your article in different disciplines. So you need to make sure that you are using correct indexing, correct signpost that are related to your work, then it will be indexing in a proper place. And also it's helpful for the readers, right, to look for your paper as well. So when you are using index word, generally rule of thumb is to use about 5 words, and that best describes your method or your paper in full. And number 5 is the introduction. So introduction is really, really important. That is where you develop the motivation and also bring the readership and to make them clear that you are doing something important, right? And you need to be very clear that, and also understand if you are presenting an imperfect introduction, and that leads to a really lifeless paper, or it will also fail to go through the review process as well. So generally, if you are not putting enough effort, reader will not bother to read your paper, because nobody cares on generally what you are presenting, right? And if they feel that the motivation is not enough, then they will give up, right? And then it will be just archiving your paper will be archiving in online repositories, and nobody going to read it. So therefore, it is very important that you plan your introduction. So when you are planning your introduction, you need to research, few databases. Like you need to rely on very reliable databases, and then you need to collect, related references, right? And then you need to also, come up with a story. So you need to be a storyteller. You need to tell the readership about the story of your work and how this technology that you are planning to introduce has been moving around the globe, over the time span, right? And then you need to bring the readership that to make them understand there is a deficit in the technology that should be researched, right? Then you are building that correct motivation within the readership. Then only the reader thinks, hey, now there is actually reason to read, because the guy said that reference X did this, Y did this, and Z did this, and he's doing something extraordinary, and he is he's attacking a problem that was not addressed by the relevant background references, or he is improving an existing scheme. So that introduction is extremely important before a paper is accepted for publication. And I have seen a lot of issues. Sometimes the papers are presented very nicely and also nice results, but unfortunately papers cannot be accepted in a reputed journal if the introduction section doesn't build that right motivation. Also, you need to give a lot of reasoning, statistical reasoning, and also introduction section need to offer a literature review as well, right? It is very important. And this is actually one case when you are presenting your literature review, don't present as a list. So in this case one, I'm not very happy with this way of writing, because it's kind of a list and it's very boring, right? Yeah, so you are not being a very good storyteller. And here you can see that I have grouped several references together, and then I try to identify what is the core factor of these few papers, and then I try to work on that and develop that correct motivation within the readership, right? And then I talk about good and bad. And of course, I don't want to create enemies, telling bad only, because every paper has merits and demerits, right? But I tell only a professional overview about this, right? It's not about anything personal. And also, I am not trying to highlight what I am presenting is not, super duper good, and that is extraordinary. This is not the motivation. I need to be honest, and I need to tell the readers that this is how the area has been evolved. And then there is a problem to be answered. This is why I am answering. And even it is good to say, if you are thinking your option is not the optimal solution, you can say, hey, I am presenting a suboptimal problem to the solution, given that these constraints are satisfied. That's okay, because you are building a contribution to the knowledge. So the next researcher can address what are the shortcomings of your paper and come up with something very concrete work. So anyway, you are contributing to the world in a very marginal way. That is also fine. Right. So this is another, example. in this paper, at the introduction, once you completed your literature review, and you need to be very clear what you're going to do in this paper, right? You can't just play 6 and 7. You need to say upfront what this paper is going to do, right? Why this is required and why this has not done. Somebody come and say, we see that, okay, you're building a right motivation, but your methodology seems very trivial, right? It doesn't answer the question very well. I mean, maybe not grounded solution that we are presenting. So before someone else say this, and if you see that what you are presenting is very trivial, you can admit that in the introduction section. And a lot of student writers that I have seen, they are trying to give a wrong impression to the reader. What they are presenting is the ultimate solution, which is really a bad practice and not very good morale as well as a student writer to cross the road, that you are just saying, use this absolute word that this is we are presenting an outstanding scheme that exceeds all the existing knowledge, right? So the introduction is continued here. So in the introduction section, so generally you kind of use 15% from the whole paper. So don't try to write more than 2 pages. So the rule of thumb for conferences papers, like if you are planning for a full conference paper, then you need 1 page. For journals, about 1.5 page or 2 pages maximum your introduction can go, including abstract, okay? And also during the introduction, you need to be honest, right? And also you need to tell about the contributions very clearly. So in my like students and myself, also many researchers that I know, they try to present their contributions in a bullet form, because then it's very easy for researchers or the reader to understand what are the objectives of this work, what we're trying to do, what kind of technology we are introducing. So everything will be very clear and much easier for the readership to understand. So I have seen a lot of desk rejection by the editor. Desk rejection means the paper when you are submitting will not go into the review process. It will be stopped by the editor immediately when the editor sees that your contributions are not very clear. Though you may be presenting 20 figures, but at the introduction, you are not very clear what you are presenting. So it is very important that you're clear about what you are doing and then clear about what you're trying to disseminate to the public. And this is the summary of the introduction. So introduction sets the tone, what will follow, and signal the reader what to expect. And you need to actually go iterations in this introduction, right? Iteration means like until you are getting into the right logical progression, you need to, with your advisor or with your colleague, you need to, get it proofread, your introduction section, and then it will come to the right logical progression. Also, you can print the paper and proofread it, or ask your friend, or ask your advisor, and then you can actually think of submitting. And I have seen a lot of student authors, they are very in a rush to submit, but then you are like actually suiciding yourself as well. So always is good to take right time and also make sure that you are presenting correct results in with a very good presentation, right? And also, there is another thing that you would like to add is the, acronyms. Many engineering and technology related papers discuss about mathematical formation, algorithm, and you have a lot of acronyms as well. So don't kill your reviewer or reader with so many uncommon variables, and try to use very compact and very general acronyms that are quite used in other papers as well. And also try not to use very long and unnecessary variables as acronyms as well, right? And it is nice to present a summary as a table, what kind of preliminaries and the notations that we are using. And system model. So system model need to be visually pleasant as a start, because this is not a result. This I have taken from a paper that we publish. And this system model tells actually what kind of technology we are using and what are the directions. This is a drone communication system that uses RF energy harvesting to harvest the energy in the drone. So we tell it quite detailed here. And this is a city environment as well. So you need to have a quite nice and visually pleasing start, but it doesn't need to go into the result section. Result sections are generally very professional, and you present your figures, your table, or your charts, that's all. And this is another figure, right? And the numerical results. So you have a section about after your methodology, you present your methodology, and then you have to have a result section. So you need to say what assumptions you do, because every experiment comes with certain assumptions. So try not to hide. Make sure that your paper can be re-simulated, retested, or re-emulated by another researcher. So you need to provide all the details, right, that are required to rebuild your experiments and reclaim by another researcher. And also explain all the system level parameters, right? And all the figures or your numerical results need to be, engaged in a discussion, because discussion is something that the reader is looking at. It's not, discussion means not something you say trivial things, what the reader can see. You always need to answer the question, why? Why I am seeing this figure? Why X is better than Y? Why X is not better than Y in a certain region? What are the reasons for this? So always you need to ask the question, why? Right? And then, because this is where you are selling your paper, the results section, you come up with your conclusions. And also in the caption, you can be very detailed, because sometimes there are readers who doesn't read the entire paper. They might only read, they want to see your results. So then for such reader, you can facilitate by having a detailed caption here, right? So you can read, you can write details that are required for a reader at a short, run to understand what this results trying to say. And then the conclusion, right? So conclusion, as I said, it should be very strong words that need to conclude on the evidence that you presented. And I have seen some conclusions that talk about the future directions. Then you need to actually rename it as conclusion and future directions in certain disciplines. When it comes to the electronic and electrical engineering, we discourage that future direction part in the conclusion, because in our community, we believe that we need to conclude only based on the presented results. And also, we see that by having this future direction section, author try to say what he's going to do next. But this is not important to the reader, what author trying to do in the next phase, right? So I think it is good to conclude with what was presented. And so it should be very concise, and you need to be summarized and arguable. You need to develop correct scientific argument that you want to make. And also in your results section, actually you need to have benchmark. So when you are presenting a result, you need to also back up your results by comparing with the benchmark in your area. So you should not give your job to the reader and ask the reader to compare your results with the another competitive scheme. You should do your job as an author, and you need to pick a competitive scheme And sometimes I hear that students say, okay, my scheme is unique and I don't find any paper to compare. That's not correct. You need to find a paper that quite matches with your scheme and update that scheme to match with your scheme. Because that author, I mean, whatever the paper that you are trying to use as your reference may not have the same system model, you know. So you need to adapt or develop that scheme to your level and then compare it, because you can compare only with apple to apple. You can't compare apple and mango. So I highly recommend that when you're writing, make sure that you have some benchmarks, you know. Then people will start trusting your work as well. And if you are unable to find benchmark, you can talk to, you know, few of your colleagues and make sure that you articulate it quite well in your results section. So here's something, you know, about explanation, example. Right, so the next one is the references. So references, again, you need to read your publication house guidelines. So some people publish in IEEE, some people in elsewhere, some people MDPI. So each publication house has their own citation way. So you need to follow that. And then also make sure you have most updated references. And I also recommend that you add some references from the journal that you are submitting to. An appendix is optional. So what goes in is, I think I have explained this quite well. Right, so the body of your paper. In the body of your paper, actually, I should have discussed it before I come to the results section. And body of your paper only talks about the methodology, algorithm, theory, or lemma that you are presenting, right? I mean, or proof, or tables that explains the main findings. There should not be any introductory level discussion. Certain authors, I think there is one example here. So this I have taken from a paper. So this author has actually started his, body, like a system develop, to explain the methodology or system model. And all of a sudden he come and say that reference 1 and 2 did something and reference 2 did this. And then I am doing this. So, but that should have done at the introduction level. So you need to make sure that what goes into the correct section of your paper, right? And also, you have to have an acceptable level of writing as well. If there are language flaws detected by the reviewer, that tells the reviewer that there could be a technology flaw as well in your in your paper. So you need to use the correct the language, punctuation, and consistency, and the logical progression. And also one golden thing to be remembered, there should be a reason for each and every sentence in your body. You should not write any sentence just to fill up the gap. So every sentence should have a reason why the sentence is standing here. And you need to make sure that you are convinced with that as well. And also, I am discouraging to use any absolute words. For example, I don't recommend people use always, never, everywhere, and also excellent, novel, outstanding. So excellent, novel, outstanding can be used in a very concrete paper that the author can provide all the evidence why your technique is outstanding than the entire existing knowledge. Other than that, you should never use these absolute words. Another thing that you can avoid is, there are some slangs and also, spoken way of English. So you need to have proper professional English. For instance, when we talk, we say that, everyone agrees that. But you can use evidence indicates, right? And also people say, when we talk, we say everywhere in the world or in all the world. But this is too big to conclude, because we don't know everywhere in the world people are doing this or not. This is too much. But as a scientific community, we use a common phenomena is. A common phenomena is justifiable because this is practicing in most of the countries or communities. That's what it means. Or don't use the word again, absolute, a word never, but you can say rarely, right? And another thing is some people may disagree or not everyone agrees. And some may agree and others may disagree. So those phrases you shouldn't use because we are not sure on this. So it is nice to use very professional way of writing, like those who would argue the point contended there. So I'm giving you some phrases that you can use. And also I'm very careful when I am writing a paper to use certain words, right? So analysis. So when you are analyzing something, majority of student work don't analyze. What they do is they generally compare or they build, right? Or they introduce a system, right? So analyze means you are analyzing something analytically, right? Providing in-depth knowledge to a community about some situation, developing a new model or developing a new theory, right? And also you also use the word, use persuasion writing as well. And then, when you are interpreting your, figures and your results, you can use, these kind of phrases like, for instance, an interpretation of the fact indicates the results of this experiment demonstrate, So there actually, you don't have to per se develop new way of writing. They are in many scientific papers by good publication houses. So I recommend you download and study the way of writing, It's kind of art that you need to learn. Right, so I think I have explained this also, this logical progression. So it's about this transition of our topic sentence. It should follow one another, and comparison, contrast, or cause and effect relationship need to be maintained. And also your conclusion need to support by your results, and they also need to relate to hypothesis. So they all need to have this logical, progression. And this is again to summarize your language, abstract in present tense, body in present tense. Sorry, there's a mistake, say present tense. Numerical section, usual in past tense, and conclusion in past tense. So this is actually a summary of, example. Right. So this is this is something, there is no right or wrong way, there is no proper way of writing, and this is something that I might recommend you. So first before you start your paper, you prepare the, your figures and tables, you write the methodology, and then write the results section, and write the discussion, and write a clear conclusion. And also, once you are finishing with that, you come to the front and you talk about the introduction, you build a story. I think I asked you to be a storyteller, and then write the abstract and compose a concise and descriptive title, right? And then you can go to the keywords for indexing. If you have any grants that support your research or your teachers, you can acknowledge that. And then finally, you put the references list. So this is one way that you can do and works for me, and also it worked for my students as well. And this is something you can follow. And then we have to submit. When you are planning to submit, there are a lot of fake journals and fake conferences are everywhere in the globe. So you need to be very careful. You need to go with the proper and verified databases. For instance, I recommend Scopus indexing to keep the baseline. So you go to scopus.com and then look for journal, whether your journal is indexed in Scopus, because this is somewhere that we keep the bottom line of the quality. If you are author from electronics and electrical area, probably you looked into IEEE conferences and IEEE journals or elsewhere journals as well. Always I recommend that you go for high targets, because very good reputed journals will give you good feedback. Even if you are rejected, then you can actually improve your paper, right? So before you submit, I also recommend you read the scope of your journal. Otherwise, it might get into the desk rejection as well. And there are different kind of papers, conference papers, journal papers, and letters. So letter also sort of a journal, but they are very short, about 4 pages, right? But they are sort of a rapid communication, and but still considered as a journal paper as well. In addition, there are papers called science communication, where you communicate to the public, and then you need to actually boil down your scientific words. And generally, like a rule of thumb is, it should be understood by your parents or your family. So that is the right level of your scientific communication. So generally, we do write scientific communication to educate the public about our scientific findings. One thing to warn is avoid plagiarism, and it is not accepted at any point, right? So you also need to, actually there's a small cartoon added by one of my colleagues, right? So the plagiarism is not allowed at any point. Technical plagiarism and language plagiarisms are not allowed. So you should be very careful, otherwise, you will end up by blacklisting by the publication houses. That will be end of your scientific career. Right, so IEEE, for the similarity content, so generally we follow IEEE guidelines that we have 20% of tolerance for similarity content, not for plagiarism. Right. Also, if you are taking certain words from a published paper, so you need to cite it always and rephrase. You can't use the same words. Also, the self-plagiarism is also not allowed. So if you are referring to your own published papers, you cannot again reuse them. But you can use the technology by citing the proper way. Right. So cite your previous related conference publications. Look, there is one way of writing here. So you can say that part of this paper is presented at XYZ conference, and this paper is the extension of this, right? Yeah. So this is actually, another algorithm that we develop to get the right, some publishable quality paper. So just in nutshell, what I can tell you is, always you need to go iterative process of proofreading. Once you are done with the paper, you feel that this is the super duper, paper, excellent quality, and that can be accepted by anyone. But that is just you are being, not very informed. So what you need to do is, always you need to pick a right colleague or your advisor and request him to her to proofread your work technically and also your language. And the iterative process need to go back and forth until the fine-tuned version is achieved. Then, by the agreement with the advisor or your colleague, you can submit. So don't submit a rough version to the editorial board that harm the reputation of your university or your research institute as well, right? So I'm not going into detail as I cross the timeline. And in addition, lastly, that has come to the end of the talk, I would like to also mention about the conference that we are organizing, ICIFS 2021 IEEE conference, that is organizing with the technical sponsorship with IEEE, main IEEE, and also Learn Societies of Power Energy Society and IEEE ComSoc, also with the financial sponsorship with Sri Lanka Technological Campus. The deadline to submit papers is 15 January, and notification of acceptance comes on 26th of February as well. So more details, I would like to invite you to visit www.icifs.org. And this is a 10th edition of this conference, mainly looking at information and communication and also power and energy aspect. Finally, I also would like to thank the SLTC IEEE student branch And also, I would like to thank the Framework of Competitive Enhancement Program of the National Research Tomsk Polytechnic University for supporting this talk and my research. Thank you. So if you have any question, the floor is open.
Okay, thank you very much, our very own Professor Dushanta, for that fruitful session, as well as I think that is a very resourceful session for all undergraduates as well as postgraduate students who are participating here, to this webinar. So as you can see in the chat box, as you saw in the chat box from the beginning, we have given you a Google form link to submit your questions. So we are ready to ask those questions from Professor. As you all know, we have a limited time frame. Because of that, we cannot ask all the questions that you are submitting, but we will make sure, and we will definitely send you a written answer or a recorded answer for all the questions that you have asked from us through that Google form. So next in line is the Q&A session, and let's move on to the questions. Okay, sir, moving on to the first question. Professor Dushanta, am I audible to you?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sir, the first question that we have from Christian Gallardo from Tomsk Polytechnic University, Russia. He has two questions. The first one is, which are the steps to follow to become part of the TPU research groups?
I think this is about probably his personal interest of joining a research team, right? Of TPU. So generally, I mean, you need to, I mean, if you are planning to join any research team of not only the Tomsk Polytechnic University and also, you know, Sri Lanka Technological Campus or wherever, it's better to write to the, you know, principal investigator, I mean, of your, I mean, area of interest. And so you may not get, I mean, sometimes response immediately, so you can wait. And also maybe you can also write to few, you know, groups that you would like to work, and also highlight which exact area, you know, you need to work. So generally when you try to reach a, you know, research team, it's good to do some homework, meaning that you better read what they are doing and also make sure, you know, that is of your interest.
Okay, sir, the next question that Christian had was, if a student submits an article and it's accepted in a journal or a congress, indexed in a scientific database or Scopus, what is the process to follow to get help from the university for the payment of the article?
Well, I think it is very much depend on university policy, and it is difficult to say a common answer. So certain universities actually do, I mean, cover the publication cost, especially if they are accepted for, you know, Scopus Index or Web of Science Index journal. So the best thing is to reach out to the research office of that particular university or the publication office and ask what sort of support available. If you are a student or, you know, final year student or a master's student, in addition, you can also talk to your school, you know, or the department head. Normally also, I mean, departments or the schools also has certain budgets to cover such, you know, expenses.
Okay, so that's all from our Christian. Christian, we hope that you got an answer for your questions. If not, you can submit. Our Google form is still open. If you need any further clarifications, please submit another question. So we will get back to you as a written answer or a recorded answer. Thank you for submitting a question. The next question we have from Sachintani Kumari, and she's from University of Kerala, Delhi. Her question is,
Okay.
to arrange the references at last, and what are the softwares that can be used to help writing research articles?
Okay, that's actually a very timely question, and many people struggle. So, what I recommend and what I'm using at my research team is, I mean, we are using LaTeX. It's a, I think, open access software that you can download over the internet, and it's very easy to use. So maybe you will be struggling in first few days, then I think you will be, get familiar. It is almost equal to the writing, research paper in Word. One of the main difficulty, as probably many of you experience, I mean, Word is very difficult to get the formatting done correctly. However, when you're using LaTeX, and many journals or other publication houses, they also work with LaTeX as well, and they have all the templates are embedded, and that makes your life very easy. For instance, if you are working, if you have steady internet connection, you can also use Overleaf platform. That is again the LaTeX, but it's online. It's called Overleaf, and Overleaf has all the templates generally that are accepted or reputed journals. Overleaf also allow you to work with your colleagues or work with your advisor, and it has actually a lot of features to comment, and also different color codes, and at the end you can also submit your journal through the Overleaf platform as well. So I mean, this is something I am using, and it might not work for everyone, but I know for sure it is something that many researchers are using.
Okay, hope Sachintani, you got an answer. All right, the next question we have from Dilmi Netsara, and she's from University of Sri Jayawardhanapura. So the question is, what is the standard format of the mini review article?
Okay, so I mean, if you are writing a review article, mini review article or a regular review article, so generally a review article synergizes the results from several databases. So you need to collect, as much as possible articles from related to the area from, index journals and also index conferences. And when you are, working on a review paper, it is very important to give a clear message to the researchers about the state of the art of that particular, research area, and also what are the contemporary projects that are running at the moment around the globe. That gives, like, the topic that you are researching is very trendy at the moment, and also giving good references, what are the groups that are interested in this particular topic. And very important thing of a review article is the future direction section. So future direction section that you need to set forth by foreseeing how this area of this particular area will be developed or evolve in next few years down the line. So when we are reviewing also a review paper, what we are looking at generally is the future direction section. And that is where you should pay more attention. The rest of the papers that you are collecting, it is more or less a list of collection, right? So this is not very much interesting for the reader if you don't have very strong future direction section. And also, if you are working on a mini review paper, probably you can work with about 50 references. And in a regular review papers, you generally need to have about 200 plus references. And page length can go to about 10 pages for a mini version, I think. And for the regular version can go really long, depend on the journal that you're planning to submit. And in addition, if you're writing a review paper, a very good one, that also a very good way of getting citations, because people want to cite. And when a new researcher come to read your review paper, you should make sure that you are giving a clear direction, and also you are giving a clear research issues and about this particular area at the moment. So that kind of work would be really interesting, I think.
Okay, I hope Ilmi got the answer what she's looking for. We have another question from Ramati, and she's from Lovely Professionals University, India, LPU, India. So the question is, what is the difference between a research paper, review article, and a thesis, and what should be included in them?
Okay, I think it is quite clear and they are clearly distinguished. And review article, as I just explained, for the previous question, it talks about, state of the art. It talks about what are the future direction of this particular area. And it talks about what are the, current, burning issues at the moment. But a research paper is, not like a review article. It goes very deep in a particular topic and it addresses a timely issue, and it offers a solution, and there are certain hypotheses that we're trying to test, and it also offers set of experiments that the researcher did or simulation, and then come to a conclusion how these hypotheses are met. So they are quite different as compared to a review article and a technical paper. So in a technical paper, generally you are addressing one research question. And when you are working with a thesis, it is a bigger goal. Thesis comes generally with many research questions, but they follow each other, right? So they should be related as well. So that is why we also say when you're writing your thesis, so each chapter need to follow one another, right? So there should be a coherence. You need to maintain the coherence of a thesis. So thesis is a bigger document. And so theses are, generally produced after, as part of postgraduate studies. But research papers, so if you collect actually, if you are a master's student or PhD student, if you collect your research papers that you publish during your studentship, at the end, actually, that is called thesis as well. But you just put them together into a one different format. Okay. I hope I answered your question.
All right, Ramati, if you need any further clarifications, as I mentioned previously, please submit another question in the Google form that we have given to you. Okay, moving on to the next question. Then this question is from Pamati Gunaratna, and the question is, I find it difficult to find a proper research topic. Where can I get ideas to write a research paper? And does writing a research mean you need to give some end product with the research paper? Within brackets, like a program to solve the program you seek in the research.
Like if you are looking for a topic to find a research, a topic, it also depends upon your set of skills. So, if you, let's say, I don't know your particular area. Let's assume if you are a, third year, engineering student, and then you have a set of skills that you have developed during your studies, right? And then you can actually read, research papers that are available on the archives, right? So there are a lot of databases, as I explained in my talk, and these are the verified sources. So you can read, research papers and also discuss with a colleague or with an advisor. And that is much easier because you get actually more, feedback from an expert as well. So then you need to, define your question very, carefully, because it should be a feasible research question. And that should also align with the timeline that you have, because you can't do your entire life, maybe you just have 6 months or 1 year to do, and timeliness of your topic, and the significance. You also need to look at the significance of your topic, and also the impact to the community, impact to the society, and also impact to the government and other stakeholders at large. So you need to look into all the, these aspects, and then you need to land into an area, and then you have to actually, as I also explained in the scientific process, you need to read the background papers, and then, develop understanding, what are the things has been done by the, fellow researchers. and then you can actually find the area where you can actually think about, I mean, what could be done to improve maybe existing system, right? So this is how you need to actually, I mean, come up with the research question if I were to answer in more lay terms. So secondly, I mean, you don't have to produce any, I mean, production or a product or circuit or a system as part of your research. So research output can be a conclusion, you know, it can be an algorithm, and it can be an answer to an existing issue, or it can be a comparison between two existing systems, two existing algorithms, or two existing products, right? So that can be also a, I mean, question. And also maybe your research output can be a solution to an existing issue, right? So, and also your solution, it doesn't need to be globally optimal, and it can only apply for a certain areas. Maybe it is you are researching on something, you know, let's say about the impact of COVID-19 in rural areas, right? So when you say that, you can again go deeper. Maybe you can think about, I mean, impact of COVID-19 in, I mean, the fishermen's, in the farmers, you know. So you can go into that, I mean, level of, I mean, deep, and then study. And also you can look into, you know, what are the factors that affecting, and what are the consequences of their life, you know, and what are the government policies. So this all can put into it together. So there is no, I mean, product or, you know, something tangible is required at all.
Okay, so the next question we have from our own university, Fatima Minsa from Sri Lanka Technological Campus. So this is the question, sir. I am currently conducting a research on swarm algorithms in prevention of COVID-19. I am unable to conduct articles physically, as there are less amount of literature reviews to be found under this novel topic. I am trying to present the framework along with some stochastic geometry and algorithms. Is it possible to provide a framework or a design study and continue presenting the developments of the same survey in another paper?
Right. I think there are two questions in the same statement. So generally, if you don't find, I mean, you know, comparative algorithm for your scheme that you are trying to develop for COVID-19, and I mean, you can look in, if you, I mean, if you are trying to benchmark, actually, I mean, you can look into probably, you know, any other situation that your scheme can have, I mean, can be applied, and where you can develop a benchmarking as well, right? And Manodya, can you read the second part of the question,
Yes,
if you don't mind?
Is it possible to provide a framework or a design study and continue presenting the developments of the same survey in another paper?
So, well, I mean, so if you are working, I don't know whether you want to do a survey paper or a technical paper. So there are two different things, as I already explained. So, but I mean, if you are working on a survey paper, you can always refer to the technical, you know, I mean, algorithms, or this your swarm optimization algorithm that you are developed, right? And when, even if you are, if it is your own work, you need to have proper citation in your next paper. So two papers cannot have the same, I mean, same technical content. And one other thing is self-plagiarism also not allowed, right? So then you need to actually rephrase the way you are, I mean, referring to your previous paper, even if you are the, I mean, first author. So I mean, so I'm not exactly sure. Actually, I answered the question. I mean, I suggest that you contact me, you know, if you need any more feedback on this.
Okay, so the final question for the session, because we have to, you know, the allocated time is 2 hours. Right. This question is from Sajani Mayadunne from Sri Lanka Institute of Information Technology, SLTC. If a research is done in group, like means 2 person, who is the first author? Can there be more than one first author?
Okay, it's an interesting question. It often happens at the time of submission because you all work as a team when you draft the paper, and at the time of submission you need to actually, I mean, number who is the first author, right? And then can there be two first authors? So in order to answer this, generally whoever provide the lion's share to the paper, especially to the methodology, is the first author. If you are working with an advisor, so generally advisor come as the second author and you are coming as the first author. And if you are the person who did all the experiments and gathered the data and analyzed them, right? And then you will be the first author. Maybe another author who did, giving you idea, right? And then cross-check your results, right? And proofread your paper. And then try to make sure the fine-tuneness of the paper. So generally such contributions comes at the second. And also maybe some authors only read final version of your paper and giving you a critical feedback to improve the readability of the work. So they will be the third authors, right? So likewise, depend on the contribution, you need to list first author, second author, and third author. So answer to the second question, in certain journals, it is allowed to have, two first authors or three first authors. It is allowed in certain journals and also conferences. So in order to test the water, you can actually submit with the two first authors if you are not sure whether this particular journal allowed. And if it is not allowed, actually it is not a big problem. Editorial team will come back to you and ask you to decide who is the first author. So generally, generally speaking, it is allowed to have two first authors. In addition, there is another author called corresponding author. So corresponding author is someone who communicate with the publication house, right? So generally, your advisor serve as the corresponding author, and corresponding author, works between the rest of the authors and the editorial team. And they generally contact the corresponding author, and he's also responsible to ensure the research ethics are met, and also timeliness of your post publication process, because once the paper is accepted for publication, there are a lot of process that need to undergo, like you need to submit your IP rights. You need to transfer the rights to the journal, publication house, and also fill up a lot of forms. And maybe if it is open access journal, you might also end up by paying the publication fees. This all are handled by the corresponding author. So I hope my answer is clear.
All right. Thank you very much, Sajani. So if you have any more clarifications or doubts, please do not hesitate to submit another question to the Google form. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Dushantha, for the valuable, fruitful session, as well as the valuable and the resourceful answers that you have given in the Q&A session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Actually, thanks. I must thank you guys, IEEE Student Branch of Sri Lanka Technological Campus, and also School of Postgraduate Studies and Research, my team, at SLTC, leading research-based university in Sri Lanka, and also Infocom Lab at School of Computer Science and Robotics in Tomsk Polytechnic University, Russia. Thank you. And thanks all the attendees, actually, and also for your interesting questions.
Okay, thank you, sir. As you all see, there were more than 1,000 participants through Zoom as well as Facebook live streaming. There were hundreds of questions, but with the time allocation that we have, we couldn't ask all the questions, but do not worry, we will provide you a recorded or a written answer through the emails that you have provided us. Okay, so it's time to wind up the session. So there are a few people to be thanked, especially our SLTC School of Postgraduate Studies and research. We are very thankful to you, both the head, Professor Dushant, as well as the lead, Mr. Leslie Udvavidhani sir. I would like to invite the webinar chairman, the person who coordinated and lead the organizing part in the IEEE SPSR, how to write a research paper webinar. Our very own IEEE student, Mr. Sasya Senara. Sasya, it's over to you to thank the people who helped us in organizing the webinar. Sasya, it's over to you.
Yes, thank you, Manodya. Professor Jusant Jakodi, Head School of Postgraduate Studies and Research, SLTC. Mr. Leslie Udvavidhana, Lead School of Postgraduate Studies and the SLTC. Mr. Hasan Haider, Advisor of the workshop, and Dr. Lasit Yasaketu, and Ms. Upeksha Saturani, Advisors of the IEEE Student Branch of SLTC. Mr. Manodya Nabadawewa, Vice Chairman of IEEE Student Branch of SLTC, my skilled committee members, and our most valued invite guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm on behalf of the IEEE Student Branch of SLTC. Let me call it an absolute honor to address and gathering of all degrees, and on my own behalf of extend a very early vote of thanks to all of the hardworking, dedicated participants. I must mention our deep sense of appreciation for Professor Dushant Jakodi for accepting our invitation and advising delivering world-class webinar. We are truly grateful to you, sir, and it wasn't for you, this event would be not been this same. Further, we are very much thankful to Mr. Leslie Udvavidhana for such a valuable addressing and for the guidance given us throughout the process. And a big thank for you, Mr. Hasan Haider, for his effort towards uplifting standard of this workshop. I would also hit the spotlight on Mr. Manodya Nabadawewa to thank for this, all the hardships he went through to make this event success. And also, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Manager of IT at SLTC, Mr. Manu Satar Singha. You were the person for all the IT-related requirements, and also Mr. Pabasra Amarvardhana, the Registrar at SLTC, and all the administration staff for the effort made by you, which resulted in the succeeding of this workshop. Last but not least, I am honestly deeply thankful to all the participants for all around the world. Believe in me, you are the pillars of the success behind this workshop. And all my fellow organizing committee heads and members, thank you for exhibiting such a caliber and experience. You are the hardworking instance which helped produce a workshop of this quality and magnitude. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I want to state that we are almost gratitude to all members of this meeting, and we thank you all for being with us this evening. It has been a great couple of hours. Thank you so much and stay safe.
All right, thank you very much, Sasya. You also have done a wonderful job when it comes to organizing the webinar. All right, then it's time to wrap up this session. And see you soon with something interesting from SLTC and SLTC IEEE as well as SLTC SPSR. And if you are an interested researcher, there's ICIFS conference, as our Leslie sir as well as Professor Dushant sir mentioned. Please submit your research paper. There are details are available on our IEEE Student Branch Facebook page as well. So, till we meet again, goodbye from all of us. Hope you all are staying safe and stay positive. Okay, see you next time. Bye-bye.